Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful lesson from Robert Greene's The Laws of Human Nature. We're going to talk about one of the most destructive forces in all of history, a force that's toppled empires, it's ruined lives, and guess what? It operates inside every single one of us. I'm talking about our own emotions. So what can bring a golden age to its knees? Well, to answer that, we've got to go back in time. Way back, about 2,500 years, to a city at the absolute peak of its power, Athens. This was the city that had everything, and then lost it all. But here's the twist. It wasn't some external enemy that brought them down. No, it was something from within.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The year is 432 BC. Athens is this vibrant, shining center of the democratic world, and it's just received a chilling message from its arch-rival, the hardcore military state of Sparta. The ultimatum is brutally simple. Accept our terms, or you're going to face total war.
And just like that, the entire city is thrown into absolute chaos. You have the Athenian assembly, we're talking nearly 10,000 citizens, and it just erupts. Can you just imagine that scene? A sea of voices, all of them shouting, all driven by fear and panic, trying to decide the fate of their empire with no clear idea what to do.
You've got the war hawks over here screaming for a preemptive strike, just pure aggression, and on the other side, you've got the doves pleading for peace at any cost, totally driven by fear. It is a perfect storm of raw emotion. But then, a familiar, calming figure steps forward, and the crowd begins to quiet down.
That man was Pericles. He was the elder statesman of Athens, and for decades he had guided the city. But you have to understand, he was a very peculiar kind of leader. I mean, he was completely different from anyone who'd come before him.
You see, Pericles just didn't play by the same rules as everyone else. While other leaders loved these big, dramatic speeches and risky military campaigns for their own personal glory, Pericles was the opposite. He was restrained, he was cautious, and he was always thinking about the bigger picture, trying to unify the city.
His entire approach was built on foresight and pure reason. He was the guy warning against expanding the empire too fast, to avoid overreaching. He won his wars with clever maneuvers, not massive bloodshed. And he used the city's money not for more conquest, but to build these timeless works of art and architecture, like the Parthenon. I mean, he's the one who basically single-handedly ushered in Athens' golden age. And this, right here, this was his superpower. He never tried to whip the crowd into a frenzy. Instead, he would just lay out his arguments with this incredible, calming logic that was so airtight, people just couldn't help but be persuaded. So when he stepped up to talk about the Spartan threat, everybody stopped shouting and actually listened. So what does he do? Well, Pericles proposes a war strategy that was completely unheard of at the time. I mean, it went against every single aggressive instinct the Athenians had. His plan was a masterpiece of strategic patience. It was designed to completely sidestep Sparta's biggest strength, their army. So instead of charging out for some glorious battle, he tells them, no, we're going to play the long game. We defend the city, we avoid their unbeatable army, we use our navy to control the sea, and we just wait. We wait for the enemy to run out of money and patience. It was a strategy built on pure logic, not emotional impulse.
And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures his whole philosophy. Pericles knew that the Spartans weren't the biggest threat to Athens. The greatest danger was the Athenians' own emotional, irrational impulses.
But then, the unthinkable happened. With the whole city crowded behind its walls, a devastating plague breaks out. And in 429 BC, it takes the life of Pericles himself. And with the voice of reason gone, that steadying hand was removed, and Athens' entire rational plan just began to unravel.
All that grief and fear, it quickly turned to anger. The Athenians started blaming Pericles for everything. All that patience he taught them, gone. It was replaced by this raw, pent-up bitterness and a desperate, burning desire for a crushing, decisive victory.
And this emotional fever pitch leads them to launch the Sicilian expedition, a massive, overconfident, and just terribly conceived invasion. It was a pure gamble, fueled by these wild dreams of glory and riches, and it failed catastrophically. It cost Athens its army, its navy, its empire. So here's the crucial point. Sparta didn't destroy Athens. Athens destroyed itself.
So what's the big takeaway from this tragedy?
The story of Athens isn't just some dusty old history lesson. It's a perfect illustration of a universal law of human nature, one that affects every single one of us, even today.
So if it wasn't Sparta, what was it? What really brought down this incredible empire? The answer isn't an army or a political rival. It's a force that operates deep inside the human mind. The real enemy was, and always is, within. Robert Greene calls this the law of irrationality. And here's the basic idea. We love to think we're rational and in control, right? But in reality, our emotions are constantly pulling the strings, twisting our perception of the world to fit whatever we feel is true at that moment.
I mean, think about it in your own life. When you feel good, you see opportunities everywhere, right? When you feel threatened or scared, you suddenly start looking for evidence to confirm those fears. Our emotions make us react instantly, and they totally bypass that slower, much more difficult process of actually thinking things through. We are constantly seeing what we want to see, not what is actually there.
The fall of Athens isn't just some thing that happened a long time ago. It's a blueprint for what happens when a group, or for that matter an individual, becomes a slave to emotion. It's a timeless warning, and it's a pattern you can see repeated over and over again throughout history and even in our own lives.
Okay, so if we're all wired this way, if we're all susceptible to this law, what can we possibly do about it? How do you fight back against your own nature?
Well, the path forward really begins with a kind of radical self-awareness. It starts by recognizing our own biases, those constant, low-grade emotions that are always coloring our thinking. Then, from there, we have to identify our personal triggers, the specific situations or people that just make us hyper-emotional. Only then can we start to build the most important skill of all, the ability to step back, take a breath, and actually think before we react.
Now, the goal here isn't to become some kind of robot who's devoid of all emotion. Not at all. It's about becoming a better observer. It's about understanding that when other people act out, they are often being driven by these deep emotional forces they don't even understand, and to realize that the exact same thing is true for us. That awareness, that is what gives you real control.
And that, at the end of the day, is the ultimate challenge. True rationality begins with having the courage to see ourselves clearly. Not as the perfectly logical, in-control person we imagine we are, but as the emotional, complex, and often irrational beings that we truly are. So the question is, are you willing to look?